Hello, I'm Krista West of Avlea Folk Embroidery, and this is the June FlossTube. I'm a little late with this. Normally I try to release these the very first week of June, and here it is the middle of June, but I'm late for very, very good reasons, most of which have to do with my new book that's coming out, which I will give you a sneak peek of in just a bit. For those of you who are new here, I'm Krista West. I'm the owner and designer of Avlea Folk Embroidery. I specialize in designing cross-stitch, mostly cross-stitch patterns for that are inspired by traditional folk embroidery. I got my start in Greek folk embroidery, and I've since expanded to other lands as people have shared their traditional folk embroideries with me. Actually, today I have a really fabulous Ukrainian piece to show you, so that'll be a lot of fun. So let's see, before we get started, all the things, you can follow along my creative journey on Instagram, and that will be in the notes. And if you want to kind of get the real scoop on everything that's going on at Avlea, the best way to do that is to sign up for the weekly email. I send one email a week. I'm really concerned with people's attention and like being respectful of that, of your attention, and that each of us only gets this one sweet life. So I send one email a week. I really want the people who buy my kits and designs to actually want to be there and want to be stitching them. So I'm not really into kind of like high pressure sales stuff. More just if you find us and you like the designs, great, glad to have you here. So let's get started. I have lots of wonderful stuff. I can't remember if I mentioned it in my last FlossTube, but I'm actually going to be in Greece this September. And so to do research and to work with my embroidery tutor there in Athens, I'll actually be in 6 different cities researching folk embroidery and folk costumes. So it's going to be a great, great trip. But it means that I need to get like a lot of our releases ready to go so that I'm not either trying to get them all done before I like hop on the plane or home and jet lagged and trying to get them done. So it's kind of been a whole season. I have probably logged 20 hours of drawn thread hemming in the last 4 weeks. It's been a lot of drawn thread hemming to get things finished for their little beauty photos. So the first step is our new release, Celestial Blue. And I went into detail about that one, and of course, wouldn't you know that I left it downstairs today. But that one is actually on the website, ready to go. It's a beautiful cushion cover inspired by traditional Greek folk costume embroidery designs. And it's also a really great design that has a bunch of different borders. So that's available at the website now. And I talked about it and showed it at length in last month's FlossTube. So that's the new release. There will be a free chart that goes with it. I just haven't quite got it all pulled together. But in the next few weeks, I'll be putting another free chart with a section of the border on the website. What else is up and coming? Oh, actually, this is pretty exciting. I'm going to be teaching here at Wild Knits in Salem, Oregon on Saturday, June 22nd. And I'll be teaching a 2-hour Folk Flourishes class. Folk Flourishes is a technique that I've sort of developed in which we use some of the traditional traditional folk embroidery fabric as a type of waste canvas so that you can stitch on garments, on towels, household items you already have, scarves, shorts, linen pants, shirts, Trader Joe's kitchen towels, you name it, and I've folk flourished it. I've done about 30 samples in the last couple of months. And so I've really perfected the technique. It's easy, it's fun, and it's the sort of thing that you can do in just a few hours and add just a little element of folk embroidery. So I'll be teaching. I checked with Holly, the owner of Wild Knits, just a couple days ago, and the class had 1 spot left. So anybody who's in the area and wants to do that, that would be great. I have not taught for quite a while. I just was really busy with my kind of transition, my day job for so many years, and then getting Avlea up off the ground. And so I haven't taught in a really long time, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm really kind of feeling like I'm at this phase right now where I might want to be adding in some teaching, maybe some embroidery workshops. I've been dreaming of like an embroidery retreat sort of thing for a long time now. And I might be getting close to doing something like that. I think it'd be really fun. A way to bring people together to stitch and build that stitching community and share these traditional designs, things like that. So stay tuned. Okay, enough of me talking. Let's get to the embroideries. Now this month, as last month I didn't quite have my setup. I'm coming to you live from the Avlea sun porch. This is the little sun porch that we didn't really know what to do with in our house. We've been renovating a 100-year-old home for the last about 5-6 years. And this room is great, but it just wasn't quite perfect for anything until I realized it was fantastic for photos. And so over the last few months, I've set it up as a photo and video studio because my workshop for Avlea is in the basement of the house. And it's a fantastic basement workshop, but it doesn't have the kind of light I need for photos and video content. So I've been working this around. I actually painted the walls a few weeks ago, or 2 weekends ago. I painted the walls into this nice kind of oyster beige color. They were green, and I was fighting that green a lot in photos, and so I just painted the walls, and they look so much nicer. When we did it, we were like, wow, why didn't we paint it this color to begin with? It's kind of hard to probably tell behind me. It looks more kind of beigey, but this is a very rosy, true oyster beige. Oyster beige was a big color in the 1920s, and I've tried to like honor those 1920s colors and color palette in the house as I've been as we've been renovating it. So we're here. I've got my camera angle better. You can see more embroideries. You see things behind me. I have a new little console table that I've been having a ton of fun photographing with because it's just so gorgeous and textured and it photographs beautifully. So first up, let's just get to the embroidery. Enough of me. The first thing that everyone has been watching me have progress on Instagram for the last several months is Katapola Fig. This design, oh my word, this design is probably one of my top favorites I've stitched in the last year. I just love it. It is quintessential Greek folk embroidery. It comes from a cushion border that just featured one side of this border. I decided I wanted something different. I actually originally set out to try and turn it into like a table square or something. I've actually been working on the design for over a year, like just the actual charting part of the design for over a year, because I couldn't get those corners right. And it was when I was working on designs for my book that I started really leaning into what are called centered band designs. Well, that makes it sound so official. It's not like anybody has actually said these are centered bands. It's just that in my book, that's what I'm calling them. And that's basically a design that's a big border that runs down the center band of a piece of linen. Typically as a table runner, but also I'm increasingly having customers write me and message me and email me about turning these into bolster cushions. And I'm like, oh, yes, please. Can you imagine this like on a bed? Ooh, it'd be so fabulous. So this design actually comes from a cushion cover as a border, but in the original design from like the 1800s, the border just runs and then it just like, there's a hard stop and there's no turn, there's no mirroring, there's no anything. And then it just runs in another direction. And I really like my designs to have as much symmetry as possible. So I started playing around with all the different versions. I tried to fill in the corners and I tried to like change it to an octagonal design and like nothing would work. And then I put it into this centered band format and it just came together. And so what it is you've got our little fig trees with the little leafy parts in between alternating, and then they are mirrored or confronted on the bottom half and then joined with this border that's actually pretty heavy. I mean, in terms of the stitch coverage, it's pretty heavy as a border, but it actually ends up looking kind of delicate and almost has like a little bit of an eyelet effect, I guess for lack of a better word, down the center. Kind of reminds me of eyelet banding. And that design I just sort of came up with. I used a little section from the original, these little like kind of keyhole designs, but then I added some other stuff to it. Then when it came time to choose the color palette, for this, I really wanted to stay within the historical madder red range. So madder reds were a really common dye stuff in the ancient world. they were one of the more affordable reds. So they were used a lot more than, say, things like the Tyrian purple burgundies or things like that. And they would be done in these gradations of color. So your first dye bath would give you a really rich, deep terracotta color. Then your second one would give you something a little lighter. And then your third, lighter, lighter, lighter. And that every successive dye bath would create a lighter shade. And I love that those graduated colors that you see in folk embroidery. I'm always very drawn to those designs. So for this one, I decided to just use the classic kind of 3 colors that I've really decided to lean into as my Madder Red palette. And that's the 3857 Rosewood, which technically speaking is actually quite close to a true Tyrian purple. I've used it interchangeably as sort of the dark tone in a Madder Red set, as well as when I want like that Tyrian purple, that rich burgundy color. And then I've used the 355 Terracotta. And then there's little tiny accents. It's kind of hard to see it. I've only just used tiny little touches of them, of the 21 Light Alizarin. So the light alizarin only is just a tiny bit here and a tiny bit here. I think the whole kit has like 2 yards or 3 yards of the light alizarin. It's just a tiny, tiny bit, but it just adds that little element of like a little extra bit of depth to the design, which I really like. And I just thought it was so effective. I stitched this as my granddaughter Clara's second Prica piece. So this is actually going to go in her acid-free storage box. And the tradition of the Greek Prica, many of you have heard me talk about it, but it's a lot like our American Hope Chest tradition, in which I'll be making embroideries for my grandchildren for years. I try to do 1 a year for each of them, but with a 3rd grandchild on the way, that might be getting a little challenging moving forward. But I try to do 1 every year or every other year, and I try to choose designs that are very traditional and are things I also like to use like a lot of different colors, because who knows how they're going to grow up and want to, decorate their homes and things like that. But when they launch into adulthood, they'll get their box of embroideries. It'll be something that'll be waiting for them. And so I love that tradition because it's a way for me to kind of be present with my granddaughters, even though right now they live on the East Coast and we're on the West Coast. So I don't get to see them very often. So I get to kind of be with them through my stitching. And I really like that. So that's Katapola Fig. And it is actually like, oh, it was funny. I was working on the design and I was stitching it. And here in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of people don't think we have figs in the Pacific Northwest, but we do. There's a variety of fig called Desert King. And they're these green figs that grow like all over Portland, Oregon. And when we moved into our house in Salem, the first day we came to see this house, our realtor thought we were crazy for buying the house because everything needed doing. There was janky carpeting, there was janky heating systems. There was actually, when we moved in November, there was no heat for a month because it's got this like very old boiler system. And the yard was a disaster, like a disaster. There was a horse trough in the backyard. There were these weird beds, like just sort of scattered. They had planted 3 cherry trees within feet of the fireplace in the exterior wall of the house. So the last 6 years have seen us doing a lot of work in our yard. But the one shining glory of the yard, the minute we walked into our backyard, there was this enormous fig tree. And I was like, okay, I can live here. There are figs. I love figs. And so our fig tree is loaded now, and we've been pruning it and feeding it and all the things. And this year it looks like we're going to get a bumper crop. So I was stitching on this and I'm looking at it. I'm like, I wonder what this really is, like a stylized motif. And then I looked at it, I was like, wait, they're figs. Like this is the great big kind of broad leaf of a fig tree. If you've ever seen a fig tree, they have these very broad, very distinctive leaves. And the figs, these like big, fat, juicy figs. So I just loved that this was a design with fig trees. So that's Katapola Fig. So let's see, what else do we have going on here? So much stuff. Okay, the other thing coming up soon, I don't know exactly when I'm going to release it, but it will release soon, is the Thessalonian Stars. Now, this is the cushion that I showed in my 2-minute how to sew a cushion cover video. Not that you can do it in 2 minutes, but you can watch me do it and get the idea of it in 2 minutes. I guess I wasn't super clear on that, but it made sense to me. So this is the Thessalonian Stars. When I designed this one, it's a 4-color border design that features two colors that coordinate in the center here in this part, and then two colors in the outside that they coordinate and kind of form this band. So it's got this really amazing color thing going on. And as I was designing it, I was trying to decide, I was like, well, do I want to do it in green? Do I want to do it in red? Or do it in blue? And I was like, well, wait, why don't we do it in two shades? So we did it in the red first. Maria stitched the red. And then Pamela saw it and she was like, well, I'll do the blue. So Pamela just finished the blue. And so we're going to be releasing this. So one is like that. It's the ivory Mickey. It's the 26 count Mickey, which is awesome for cushion covers. It's very durable, very easy to stitch on. And I definitely noticed that when I start stitching on the Mickey, especially if I've been switching from like a 30 count linen, I think, wow, this is kind of big. Am I going to like this? And then I always end up loving the design once I'm done with it. So it just works so well for cushions. I have done a lot of designs on the 26 count Mickey. That's actually like what they'll tell you, like in a Greek needlework shop. They'll be like, oh yeah, if you want to make a cushion, like go with the 26 count Mickey. That's the one that's kind of like, not really standard, but it's definitely like designed to hold up and be durable for that kind of household usage. So the Thessalonian Stars is going to be coming out in the red version on the ivory Mickey, but then in this fabulous blue version on the white. Oh my word, we had to kind of go over the colors several times. I just didn't choose vibrant enough blues the first time around. And when Pamela was stitching it, it was funny, she'd bring it into the workshop the next morning and she'd be like, I don't know, I just don't love this blue. So we'd take the one blue and we'd amp it up. Like I think we started with the 930 antique blue for the outside. And then we were like, nope, has to be brighter. So we changed it out to the 311 navy. And then I had a softer blue in the middle and we were like, nope, not working. Change it out to, I think it's the 806 or 807 peacock blue. Suddenly it just like went, oh, it just like popped. It was so beautiful. And then she's like, I really think it needs the turquoise colors. I'm like, okay, let's try the turquoise. So the outside edge on this one is actually, is the 3808 turquoise ultra very dark. And the is it the 598? I think it's the 598, the turquoise, just the basic turquoise. And then this design has this fabulous 8-pointed star motif that almost reminds me of, I'll get a little closer on that one so you can see that. That center motif reminds me of quilt blocks. Many moons ago, I went through a very intense quilting period. I did a lot of hand quilting. I was really interested into Amish quilting, everything by hand. I was, of course, a purist. I know that comes as a huge surprise to all of you. And I've always been drawn to those, like, again, those historic geometric type motifs. So when I saw this in a historic cushion, a Greek island cushion, I was like, oh, I got to do that. And I just love the energy of all that kind of like constant movement of like the alternating colors. So the little points of the star alternate the colors in each quadrant. Really, really great design. And that's on the 26 count Mickey in the white. So I was really happy that we could start offering, I think I've talked about this in several FlossTubes, but I really want to, as much as possible now moving forward, be offering like some designs have 2 different colorways or 2 different sizes so that there's more options for you. Because I'm getting ready to release, I think in September, the Vlakernai Peacock design will release. And for that, I have a like really, extravagant table runner. But then I also am doing like a smaller wall hanging because I want there to be a really wide range of project size for you. Because it doesn't really have to do with whether you're a beginner or experienced. Oh my word. That totally reminds me of the most fantastic email we got. This was like 2 weeks ago. This woman from England emails me and says, I love your kits. It was just the loveliest email. She's like, I love your kits. I've never cross-stitched. And my mother told me my grandmother was an amazing needleworker and I wanted to connect with her through that. So I picked up one of your kits and I've had so much fun with it. It was my very first cross-stitch design. She chose Miriam's Garden. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it was my granddaughter Miriam's first Preca piece. I released it 3 years ago And it's like 20,000 stitches, and it is a complex design, lots of counting. And she just dove in. That was the first design she did. And so I feel like there's a real range. You know, sometimes you have beginners who really do want to start on something that they're going to get an amazing like end product. And they're very, you know, that's what they want. And I want there to be kits for them. But then sometimes, like, for example, you know, sometimes I might want to give like a small gift to someone, and that's when I really like a wall hanging or something. Or maybe I want just like a little piece. Or maybe I'm traveling and I want a small kit to take with me. So I really want to continue to build out like in the designs, to be looking at every design, looking at it and thinking, could I do this in a different layout or format or size? And can I do it in a different color? So, because that's one thing you see, I mean, in folk embroidery, it's so common to see a design here that you then see in a different, you might see it in Greece, like take the 8-pointed star. You'll see the 8-pointed star or the oak leaf design. You'll see it done in Greece, like in reds on a bed tent curtain. And then you'll see it in Ukraine in a ruchnik, in a traditional icon scarf. And you'll see it there done with like blacks and blues and greens and yellows and oranges. And then you'll see it someplace else in a totally different colorway. So I love that variety that we find in folk embroidery. And I want to keep offering that and adding that as I'm adding kits. So that's Thessalonian Stars, which will release, I'm not sure when, soon. I'm just going to say soonish on everything. Oh, and as long as I have that one out, I can show you another sneak peek. I've got so many like sneak peeks. So this is another sneak peek. This is Delian Leaves. And did you just appreciate like how beautifully staged that looked on my little console table? Can we have a moment for that? I've been having so much fun photographing with this new console table because I'm getting these really great photos of like the pretty carved drawers, and it's kind of like evoking that kind of like wonderful Mediterranean look. So anyways, and then I'm having tons of fun staging it with like my plants, my little plant collection and all my little fun things. So it's been really fun. But this design, I think I might have showed it to you last month before I'd hemmed it. On this one, I decided to go with a really big hem allowance. On some of the centered band designs, okay, so like Katapola Fig looks really good with like a little kind of narrow hem allowance there. That like really looks great with the design because the design is a little bit more delicate. But some of these larger designs, these bolder designs, I really like that big, beefy hem allowance. I think it just like works. And talk about bold. This design is so bold. I just love it. It's actually a reject from the book. It was so big, I couldn't fit it in the design library of the book. Like I needed the space for other charts. And it was so big. And as soon as I like had to like, you know, kind of go, oh, I have to cut it from the book. I was like, wait, we're going to do that as a kit. Like it's so beautiful. So Maria stitched this up. And can we just have a moment for Maria's backs? Oh my gosh. Look how perfect that is. I don't even know how she does this. My backs don't look like that. My backs look like this. My backs, they're getting better. They're definitely getting better, but not as neat as Maria. And one of these days, I want to actually do some reels on like the loop start method and things like that. There's lots of good videos out there that actually explain it better. But I think some people just need to see it real quick, like 30 seconds, like, oh, wait, I can start my floss that way. You can, and it's wonderful. I'm a huge fan of the loop start method these days. So anyways, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google, go to YouTube and put in cross stitch loop start method. And I think it's Caterpillar cross stitch. She has great videos. I love her how-to videos. They're very clear. That's actually how I learned to do it. It was really great. So shout out to her. Good videos. So the Delian Leaves is a design that I have seen in Greece, Romania, Yugoslavia, and at least the center floral design in Ukraine. So it's one that clearly lots of people have loved and shared in all sorts of different cultures and countries over the last several hundred years. It's extremely bold. It has these wonderful leaves that are just like, wow. They are so wow. They're just huge. And these leaves form this like X shape, and then in the middle is this gorgeous flower. But I just love the whole scene because you've got these little kind of like, almost like little 8-pointed stars, not quite, but sort of. And then I love this use of negative space. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to try and get that a little closer. Can you see that? I think you can. The little use of negative space with just a single little cross stitch in each one of those just provides this like kind of lightness to the design that contrasts so beautifully with the really heavy leaves. For this one, I did something that I actually don't think I have ever done this. I'm thinking through my kits right now. And for the leaf, I actually used all 3012, which is the khaki green medium. I really don't like that name. I personally think of it as soft olive. It's a really beautiful green. In the traditional Mediterranean color palette, it is usually combined as a highlight color, sort of an accent color, to the 469 avocado green. So it's not that common to see it used entirely on its own, but I've been starting to do that a little bit more. I really like the color of it. I like the tone. It's warm without being too golden. And so I used it for this design, and I couldn't be happier with it. I was really, really happy. And then this is classic terracotta. And then we have the 733 golden olive, just a little tiny highlights of that, just a little bit of gold touches there. And then the 924 gray green, very dark, which is actually very much the warm kind of phthalo blue of Mediterranean folk embroidery. So terrific design. This, I believe, is probably going to be my August release. I think so. I have to still work on the release calendar, but I'm pretty certain we'll be doing that in August. Then, Euphemia. Okay, so here's a really great design. Every once in a while, I send things out to sample stitchers, and they work on them. Some of my sample stitchers are super speedy. Maria is like super duper speedy. You give it to her and like 3 minutes later, it's back. And then some of my sample stitchers just like to have something to work on for several months, and I send things out, and sometimes I forget that I sent them out. And then the sample stitcher sends them back, and I'm like, oh, woohoo, another sample. And this is one of those. This is a design that is actually not inspired by traditional folk embroidery, but is actually inspired by the, I'm trying to think of the name in Italian, but it's in English, it's a house of mosaic carpets that's in Ravenna, Italy. And it's a really interesting museum. I don't know if I've talked about it before in a FlossTube, but this design is directly from one of those mosaic floors at the Museum of Stone Carpets. That's what they call it, the Museum of Stone Carpets in Ravenna, Italy. And I adapted it to cross stitch. I have been so happy at how many people liked my Oak Park Diamonds design, which comes straight out of Eastlake and Frank Lloyd Wright architecture, that I decided to keep going with that. And so I'm now kind of widening my inspiration field, and I'm looking at architecture and things like that, looking for those patterns and designs that would make really beautiful stitched pieces. This also, though, has a lot of affinity for the kind of all-over designs that are stitched as table runners in Greece that are very common. You see them a lot. And I love those pieces. I actually have a number of those pieces I've stitched for my home. I just like them because they're a way to add this like textural element to a dresser or to a bookcase or to an accent table. I always have one on my entryway table with a plant. I mean, I just still love opening my front door and walking in and being like, oh, there's some textiles to greet me. That just makes me happy. So for this one, the inspiration I used was actually a photo I took when we visited the Museum of the House of Stone Carpets. And this was really funny. So in 2012, I went on a research trip to Greece and Italy. But one of the primary things I was doing in that trip was going to see the Byzantine mosaics in Ravenna, Italy. It had to do with my work on ancient and Byzantine color theory as it was used in ecclesiastical vesture of the Greek Orthodox Church. So for my rather boring academic book I did on that topic. And in the middle of my research, for that book, I had colors as just this little subheading under like the fabric chapter. And as I went deeper and deeper and deeper into the research, I suddenly discovered this entire field of ancient color theory. And it went from being literally a few paragraphs to being a 35-page chapter in its own right. And what took me to Ravenna, Italy, was to study the 6th century mosaics, the Justinian mosaics in the, there's several churches there that have them. There's the Church of Santa Apollinare in Ravenna. There's I'm blanking, San Vitale, and the big one, which I'm suddenly just blanking on, but it has the very well-known mosaic of Justinian and Theodora, Empress Theodora with their courtiers. And I was going to see if the ancient Byzantine mosaics actually had the color that we call, in the modern world, purple in them. Because all of the books printed showing photographs of that show some of those mosaics as purple. But according to my research, the favored color was Tyrian purple, which is not purple, which is confusing, but is more of like a very deep, intense burgundy color. And sure enough, when I got there, it's actually just a feature of modern digital color printing that goes into books and textbooks and things like that, that there is no color that we call purple in any of those mosaics. It's the color, the burgundy color. And it's really just because of limitations of modern printing that those mosaics will print purple. They are not purple in person. And that was the whole reason I went to Ravenna, Italy, was just to look at those little mosaic tiles and see if I saw purple. And I didn't, and it was an amazing trip. Well, we're in Ravenna and we're walking around and we suddenly, oh wait, is it Rome or Ravenna? On the same trip, we were in Ravenna and we were also in Rome. And I cannot remember which city it is because it all kind of like blurred together. But we're walking by the church of St. Euphemia, and I actually think this is in Rome and not Ravenna. And there's this church, and it's a little tiny church, and you go in, and it says museum this way. And you keep walking back and back and back in the church, and you think, I'm not in the right place. And we just kept walking and following signs, and I'm like, okay, is there a museum? This feels really weird. And there's even a point at which you think, I'm a little nervous. Like, is this actually something that maybe pickpockets set up to trap me? So it really doesn't feel like entering a normal museum. And then you start going downstairs, staircases, into these like dark staircases. And you're thinking, whoa, this is a traveler's nightmare. And then you get to the bottom of the staircase and there is these metal catwalks and they are set up and you behold this like vast expanse of these amazing Byzantine mosaic floors. And it turns out what happened is they were excavating for a parking garage, I think like in the 1970s or 80s. And they dug down and they discovered what had been a like very high level Byzantine courtier's home and almost all of the mosaics were intact. They're incredible. If you ever go to Italy, go see the House of Stone Carpets. And so I just had a bunch of I just took, photos of this, that, because I was really interested in the patterns. And Euphemia is one of those designs from the House of Stone Carpets. And the church, the little church that you enter through, is the Church of St. Euphemia. So we're calling this Euphemia. Euphemia in Greek, Euphemia in English. The EU words in Greek always get translated a little funky in English because we don't say ev, we say eu. So it's like this little bit of transliteration difference. So Euphemia or Euphemia, Euphemia, these kind of names were actually really common in like the 19-teens and 20s in America because there was a big like kind of Greek revival thing going on. So there were some of those Greek names that you'll hear of like older women in America being named those names. So anyways, that was a lot of backstory on this piece. So much backstory. So that's Euphemia. That's going to be coming out very soon. What else do we have? Oh, let me show you two more things, and these will be quick. I think I might have showed this in the last FlossTube, so I'll be really brief with it. But this is Kievan Stars. This is a Ukrainian piece that's coming out also in August, and it is inspired by a traditional Ukrainian vintage embroidery in my own private collection. The original is done in hot yellow and light bright orange, and it's so high contrast that it's just not, at least to my eye, it's not the color palette that I would choose. So I wanted to soften down and play with these colors, keep the same kind of color tones, the blue, the green, the yellow, the red, but then just sort of soften them a bit. Cindy Russell stitched this. She just did an amazing job. And this is going to be on the 30 count. It is on the 30 count Mickey. And I love this design because I love anytime you have a double-ended table runner that has some sort of connection, because it makes it so much easier to count. And I loved the way the negative space in the middle of this table runner was filled with these little, like, you work like a stitch, you work like every other stitch. And so it ends up looking almost like this little kind of dotted line. It's really a gorgeous design. So that one's going to be coming out soon. Okay, what else? Oh, in my hoop right now, I am working on a new sample for the olive branch design. I've been at this for maybe 10 days. It works up so fast. And my original design, the sample stitcher wanted to keep it, so I don't have it to photograph, and I need to take new photos. So I'm stitching it again, but this time around I decided to stitch it on the 26 count Mickey. I thought that would be really beautiful, and I'm so happy I did. This is going to be a really, really great piece. Really great all over piece. So I'll be re-releasing that sometime in the fall, probably. So that then you'll have the option of either doing, you'll be able to choose if you want the traditional ground cloth, which the original photos are stitched on, or if you want the Mickey 26 count. So again, one of those things where I'm trying to use some of the existing designs. You know, this surprises me because it's a simple little design, but it's been very popular. This is one of our very popular smaller table runner kits, probably like one of the top 5. So I'm always surprised when I see orders come through, but I'm like, I like it. It's graceful, it's elegant, it's geometric, and olive leaves. I mean, what's not to love? But I'm sure I've mentioned before my undying love of olives. I love olives. I would live on olives. Like, if I had to choose a food group to live on, it'd probably be olives. So, the other thing I have going is, I'll give you a little quick sneak peek of this one because it's just so impressive. So Magdalene's Meadow is a pomegranate collection piece that Maria just stitched, which is stunning. This is actually inspired by a historic embroidery, photos of which one of our Avlea stitchers shared with me. And it's a piece that it's Sophia, and Sophia's Aunt Magdalene stitched it. And she shared me these photos, and I was just blown away. The design is straight up Greek folk embroidery. Very strong geometrics, lovely centered band, lots of extra stuff going on, and worked in those 3 shades of madder red. So this is the rosewood, the terracotta, and the alizarin. So very traditional. This piece is a very, very traditional piece, and I decided to have her work it on the traditional ground cloth. So this is like straight up Greek folk embroidery. So this one will be releasing soon too. And then lastly, let's see, what else have I been working on? This morning, I actually was finishing up a project. You guys can get a little sneak peek of this little guy. So cute. This is a little drawstring bag tutorial project that I did for the Embroiderers Guild of America. The Embroiderers Guild of America reached out to me and asked if I would do a tutorial blog post. It's really cool. They're asking designers to do this, and they're putting it in like their free project section of their website for EGA members. The Embroiderers Guild of America, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is an association of embroiderers in America. And they do a lot with education and preserving embroidery knowledge. And they've got a great website, really great tutorials. Melissa Galbraith of M Creative J just did a really cool one on an embroidered nature embroidery hoop. And there was another one I saw there too that was really cool. So I asked my publisher if I could use one of the designs from the book. And they were like, sure, that's a great idea. So this is actually part of a centered band design that's in the book. Actually, let me grab the book and I'll show you that. Okay, so sneak peek, you waited all the way to the end, so lucky you. Sneak peek of, get on the right side, Everyday Folk. Over 175 folk embroidery designs for the home inspired by traditional textiles. This is my new book on folk embroidery. I am just a little excited. And I love what they did with it. I got my copy last week and it was just like, oh my word. It's so interesting to see like all of the work and all the designs and all the text that I've been seeing in like charts and JPEGs and Microsoft Word documents, to see it like all finally like in a published form. Really, really, really cool. We are now have this on pre-order. And just to give you a little, let me see if I can, here, let me see. I'm not very good at this. I'm like not a librarian. So basically, it has 14 essential projects. It starts out with that, okay? But we're just getting started. So 14 essential projects. There are cushion covers, table runners, a laptop case. And for those, there's like full charts for everything. And we're doing coordinating supply kits on the website. So like if you want to get the whole supply kit for that project, you can do it. All of them are on the website. With one exception, and that is the adorable little banded dress that my daughter made. So my daughter did this amazing, let me see if I can find it. Okay, here's the drawstring bag project that we did for the book, and I thought it'd be fun to do that for the EGA tutorial. So we're doing that. I love how they photographed it. Okay, let me see if I can find the little dress that my daughter made. Oh, it's so sweet. So if you can see that, my daughter sewed that dress in pinafore, and then she sent it to me, and I added the embroidered banding on the pinafore. And it just turned out so great. And then we sent it to England, and it all got photographed. And then, what else is in here? Okay, so then, after the essential projects is this huge, like, finishing techniques. We've got step-by-step photos of drawn thread hemming, how to make a cushion, how to make a laptop cover, how to do my new mitered cushion. Very fun. It's a great way to take a little bit of embroidery and make it look way more impressive. It's got the banding. It's got the little drawstring bag. It's got the laptop case, which is super cool. That was really fun, kind of showing how to do a flat envelope. It has an entire chapter on how to design your own folk embroidery project, how to do the math. It's got little handy worksheets. It's got little layout suggestions. I mean, I have done the math for you people. All you got to do is fill in the numbers. It's super easy. So you can like do your own designs. So like, for example, say you have something like olive branch and you're like, well, I like the small table runner, but I have a big table and I want to make it like 40 inches long. Well, the little design worksheet here will show you exactly how to do that. Very cool. I wanted other people to know that. And then we have the design library. Oh, it's so fun. Okay, let me see if I can find the one that this is from. And this is like all these charts that I just pulled together from my historic sources, my personal reference works, all that kind of stuff. And this is the chart. In the book, you can see it's a centered band design, and I took a section of it to make the little drawstring bag to go with it, which I thought was really cute. So, and then I'm doing that as the EGA tutorial. And then there's like, yeah, and then there's just more and more and more, and tons and tons and tons of fun little borders. Look at all the little borders, tons of borders, lots of fun stuff. So, pre-order the book if you're interested. I kind of thought I would only get one shot at doing a book on cross-stitch folk embroidery. So I thought it better be good. And so it's both kind of like inspirational project book, but also like reference work. I wanted it to be a book that people are like, yeah, that's totally worth the space it's going to take up in my, library or my bookshelf of my craft books or things like that. I wanted it to really pull its own weight. And so it's now available. They are going to, great news. It's part of why I've been so busy the last 2 weeks. I got news that it is going to actually ship almost 3 weeks earlier than I thought it was going to, almost a month earlier. So the books, we'll probably have the books like late July, early August, and they'll be shipping like in that mid-August range, maybe even like the first week of August if we have them. So we really only have about 6 weeks to go. I just still can't believe that it's here. I am doing some book signing events. I'll be at Acorns and Threads up in Portland. I'll be at Paulina Springs Bookstore in Sisters, Oregon. And there's one more, but I can't remember which one it is. So anyways, so the project for this that we did for the EGA tutorial that kind of like coordinates with the book is that design with a little drawstring bag. It's like a little drawstring bag, and it shows my super easy little line bag technique. And then you just make you use your leftover floss to make little cords, and there you go. It's super easy. I love these little bags. I use them when I travel. I give them as gifts, like, because it's really easy. You can usually stitch something like this in, you know, a few nights, a week. Then you just sew it right on up. And you don't have to have a sewing machine to do this. You could do it by hand. It's not that difficult to do this by hand. I should try doing one by hand just to see, like, put my money where my mouth is, you know, and see how hard is it. But it wouldn't, it's only a couple of straight lines of stitching, so it shouldn't really be that difficult. So that's that. Wow. It's been a super duper busy FlossTube. But I think that's everything. As always, yeah, that's all of our cushions. It's Delian Leaves. It's all the things. There's a lot coming up. Part of why I've got so many samples right now is I'm getting everything photographed again because of going to Greece in September. I'll be gone for a few weeks, and I'll be, I'm really excited about it. I'm already like beefing up and reading all on my folk costuming knowledge, because most of my research has been very much in the household goods, the bed tent curtains, the cushion covers, things like that. And now I'm like adding in that folk costume knowledge so that I can kind of understand those patterns and how designs were used there. And it's just fascinating. I find folk costume really, really fascinating. So that is it. As always, I just want to thank you for being here. Thank you for watching my FlossTube. Thank you for following me. This is my dream job, to design folk embroidery, to join with you to stitch folk embroidery, and to keep it alive in the world. That is just a dream come true for me. I love this work. I love that we get to share this work. And it's just that we bring this much like beauty into the world. It's just a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing that we do. And I love that it is so community oriented, that, you know, it's not just me sitting in my stitching chair, you know, stitching something that maybe one person will see when they come into my house. It's something that we're all getting to like stitch and share and do these sorts of things. And like now with the book and everything. So it's really exciting, but I couldn't have done any of it. Not a single bit of it. Not a single design, not a single kit, not the book. Nothing would have actually happened if it hadn't been people like you that were interested in folk embroidery and want to support these kind of designs. So thank you so much for your support and your encouragement and your messages and everything. You guys are the whole reason I do this. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I will see you next month. Happy stitching.